Today's Hunter build might be the most broken build I've covered in the Edge of Fate. Today's build will be able to one-shot every enemy you come across while also providing high uptime on abilities, access to bonus damage resistance, and more. Today we're going to be going over the build layout, the exotics you'll want to use, the armor stats, and more to use this build to its fullest potential. With that being said, I'm SniperKH and let's get into it. Let's first open with the build layout. For this build we'll be on Prismatic Hunter. The build layout is on screen now, however it's important to understand how each ability affects this build. To start off we have Deadfall Tether, which will be our super of choice. This super will grant us a damage buff against targets while active, while suppressing targets, making them not attack us when affected by the tether. Furthermore, with one of the fragments that we'll have with this build, we'll get access to Overshield for 5 seconds, which grants us 70% damage resistance for that time. For our class ability, we'll be going for Gambler's Dodge, as using this dodge will grant us melee ability energy, with the amount depending on how many points we have invested into the melee stat, but more on that later. Speaking of melee, our melee of choice will be Combination Blow. Combination Blow is a staple for this build as it'll provide us with easy access to bonus damage for melee. Additionally, this buff now stacks with another ability's damage, which we'll discuss now. For our grenade, we have Grapple. The sole purpose of Grapple in this build is for us to get access to Grapple Melee, and to segue from the melee ability, the damage buff from Combination Blow now stacks with Grapple Melee damage, allowing for our Grapple Melees to hit like a truck. For our aspects, we'll be going with Ascension and Stylish Executioner. Ascension received a buff with the Edge of Fate, allowing for players to use this aspect, while also getting the effect from the class ability option they chose. So for this build, we'll be able to activate Ascension, which will amplify us while jolting nearby enemies. For Stylish Executioner, we'll be given the ability to go invisible when defeating debuff targets, which will allow our next melee attack to hit harder as long as we attack a target while invisible, which will be easy to do. Because Ascension and Stylish Executioner grants us 2 fragment slots apiece, we have 4 fragments to pick for this build, which we'll be using to increase our survivability, whilst making it easier for us to generate our abilities. The 4 picks I have for the fragments are Facet of Balance, Facet of Purpose, Facet of Protection, and Facet of Sacrifice. Facet of Purpose and Facet of Protection will be the 2 fragments that boost our survivability, as both grant us damage resistance easily. As mentioned earlier, Facet of Purpose will grant us Overshield when picking up an Orb of Power thanks to our super selection, which means we'll have access to 70% bonus damage resistance for 5 seconds after grabbing an Orb of Power. For Facet of Protection, that'll grant us 15% bonus damage resistance when surrounded by 3 or more enemies, which will also be easy considering this is a melee build. For Facet of Balance and Facet of Sacrifice, these will help us with ability regeneration. Facet of Balance will grant us bonus melee and grenade energy when getting light and dark kills respectively, which means we should have the abilities up pretty often. For Facet of Sacrifice, this will help us generate Transcendence fast, which could be nice to have. That being said, if you don't have your class stat up to 70, then you'll want to replace this with Facets of Hope, as having an elemental buff active will grant you faster regeneration of your class ability. To enhance this build, we'll want to incorporate some exotics, so let's check what exotics we're going to use next. So as you might have guessed by now from the pick of the Prismatic subclass, we'll be using the exotic class item for Hunters. The role for the class item you'll want to be on the lookout for is Spirit of Inmost Light and Spirit of the Liar. Spirit of Inmost Light will grant you bonus ability regeneration and damage when you use one of your abilities, which will make your abilities stronger across the board. For Spirit of the Liar, it buffs your damage shortly after you land a successful melee hit, allowing you to do 400% more damage on the next melee hit. Now, something that you might not have known about this perk is that it buffs both Combination Blow melees we'll be using, but also our Grapple melee, allowing it to do a drastically large amount of damage. The exotic weapon is also important for this build as you'll want the Navigator, and it's crucial that you have its Catalyst. The way Navigator's Catalyst works is that you'll be given the ability to create grapple points every 45 seconds when you switch to the alternate firing mode. The purpose of this is that it allows you to have easy access to a grapple point, which in turn grants you access to infinite grapple melees, which means you can pummel enemies to death. You can easily get exotic class items through Xur as long as you've unlocked them previously, and if you played the Rite of the Nine event in May, you'll most likely have access to the Navigator already, and will just need to run the Ghost of the Deep dungeon to obtain its catalyst. Additionally, using a 1-2 punch shotgun will enhance this build further, since landing all pellets from one shot will increase the damage of your next melee attack, allowing you to do even more damage against the enemies you're fighting. Let's now talk armor stats, as armor stats play a massive part in this build. For this build, the 3 stats you'll want to focus are melee, grenade, and class. Each of these 3 stats will boost the generation of combination blow, grapple grenades, and our gambler's dodge, but the reason they play a massive part in this build is because this is how we're going to boost our damage further. Due to the stat rework with the Edge of Fate, investing more than 100 points into one stat will give you bonus benefits, and for this build, those benefits will push this build even further by granting you bonus damage. Of the 3 stats we want to focus, we'll want to heavily invest our points into grenade, as the grapple melee attack is linked to the grenade stat, meaning the bonus damage you'll get from the grenade stat beyond 100 points will buff grapple melee's damage. Now it's important to note that you shouldn't break the bank investing into this stat, as you need to save enough points to invest into melee and class. The goal for these 2 stats is to get them to 70 points, as once you reach 70 points, you'll be refunded your abilities as you would before the stat rework, but having less than 70 means you won't get the full ability back from a combination blow kill or gambler's dodge use. If you have these 2 stats at 70, then I recommend just investing the rest into grenade. It's also important to note that if you get up to 180 points in grenade, you won't need to invest any more points, as I'll explain in the next section. Let's now talk about the mods you'll want to pair with this build. The main purpose of our mods will be to build our abilities and super back as fast as possible. Additionally, we'll be able to gain bonus stats through font mods if we want to push the damage further. For our helmet mods, I'd recommend running 2 copies of Hands On. Running 2 copies from Hands On will allow you to gain bonus super energy from melee kills, which we'll be getting a ton of thanks to combination blow to keep combination blow stacks. It might seem confusing to run Hands On over Ashes to Acids, as grapple grenade kills won't grant bonus super energy through Hands On, but will through Ashes to Acids. However, super energy gains from Ashes to Acid grenade kills are reduced by 25% when it's your grapple melee doing the killing, meaning we can gain normal energy through combination blow, which makes more sense. For our gauntlets, I'd recommend 1 copy of Heavy Handed and 1 copy of Grenade Font. Having a copy of Heavy Handed will grant us an Orb of Power, which will in turn activate our Grenade Font, which will grant us 20 additional points to our grenade stat. If you remember earlier when I was discussing armor stats, I mentioned that once you get to 180 points into grenade, that you should then focus your points elsewhere, and this is why. However, if you're not at 180 points, you still get bonus points, which will grant you bonus grapple grenade damage. For your chest piece, run whatever elemental resistances will benefit you with whatever activity you're playing. For our boots, I'd recommend 2 copies of Innervation and 1 copy of Stacks on Stacks. The 2 copies of Innervation will allow us to get our grapple back much faster, especially if you have 100 points invested into the grapple grenade stack. Additionally, Stacks on Stacks will grant us 2 armor charges when we pick up an Orb of Power, allowing us to have access to our grenade font for longer, letting us reap its benefit longer. For our class item, I'd recommend 1 copy of Bomber and 2 copies of Time Dilation. The 2 copies of Bomber will grant us another way of generating grenade energy when using our class ability near enemies, and the 2 Time Dilation copies will extend the duration of our armor charges from 10 seconds to 18 seconds, and since we'll be getting 2 armor charges per Orb of Power, that means we'll be getting nearly 40 seconds of bonus grapple melee damage, making this build even stronger. Additionally, artifact mods will benefit this build, so run Refresh Threads for bonus ability energy, Elemental Coalescence for a free way of getting Void Breaches, which will grant us a bonus class ability energy, and let us activate Refresh Threads often, and Shield Crush to boost our melee damage. Onto the combat flow, it's fairly simple to follow. Before we cover it, it's important to note that the combat flow I'll be sharing will be the one you should follow if you have 70 points invested into melee and class. If you don't, you can still follow this combat flow, but no, it will be a little choppier than what the gameplay shows. For starters, you'll want to get a combination blow kill, which will then grant you your Orb of Power and your class ability back. From there, activate your class ability to restore your melee. Repeat this process until you've hit 3 stacks of combination blow. From there, activate the alternate firing mode on the navigator and fire the Guardian Knot into the air, and grapple to it and cancel your grapple once you've connected by using your melee ability to grapple melee. From there, keep doing that until your combination blow stacks are close to running out, to which you should use your power and melee ability to refresh the timer. Once the timer is refreshed, keep grapple meleeing your enemies to death. Overall, this might be one of the most insane builds with one of the highest damage potentials I've used. The damage output this build provides alongside its ease of use makes it an amazing option for any activity you might run in Destiny, and it's no wonder why some of the best PvE players are opting to use this build in endgame activities. If you enjoyed today's guide, consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel for more Destiny 2 content dropping weekly. Consider checking out the Twitch channel in the description below to check out my streams where I build craft and do other shenanigans you won't want to miss. Also, consider joining my Discord server for community events and more. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.